Hello and welcome. This is my second blog of the year, and today I'm going to be looking at the wedding of Charlotte and Jacob and reflecting upon which parts of that film worked for me and which parts didn't. So this is my second time at the West Mill venue in Derby. Brilliant venue. I shot there previously in March time. It was for a couple called Mike and Rachel. And the reason I got the wedding of Charlotte and Jacob, the reason Charlotte got in touch with me in the first place, is because of actually the West Mill putting my previous film up on their website, on their Facebook page. Charlotte saw that, she got in touch with me, and one thing led to another, and here we are. So I hadn't actually met with Charlotte previously, so on the day it was kind of like our first time meeting each other. I didn't actually know what she looked like. It was quite funny. I remember I got to the West Mill and I got into the lift and I was like, so who are you guys? And she was like, I'm Charlotte. And I was like, oh, Charlotte as in Charlotte, the bride. She was like, oh yeah, are you Harry? And I was like, yeah. That was kind of like quite a funny moment. So the first thing I do when I arrive at any wedding venue is find a safe place to put down my gear, because the last thing I want to be doing is sort of moving my gear around throughout the day. I just want to keep it in one safe place, leave it there, and know it's going to be okay. And yeah, the first thing I was going to capture was the bridal preparations in the bridal suite. Overall, it's a pretty nice, nicely lit sort of room. It's a bit tight though, so I need to sort of really stick to kind of closer shots. Overall, yeah, I was quite happy with what I got in the bridal suite. I like to focus on like kind of real detailed close-up shots of like makeup being applied in the eyes and that kind of extreme close-ups. I think that's a good way of building up the beginning of the film. I also had help on this wedding film from my friend Sarah, who worked with me previously at Lion Keys for Vicky and Luke's. She'd never been here before either, but she was great help. She got a bit of the groom arriving and focused on the guests arriving outside, because I can't be in two places at once. So this was actually the last wedding film I was to shoot on my Canon 7D. So it was kind of sad in that regard. So I just ordered my Canon C100 and that was on its way. Unfortunately, it was coming literally the day after this wedding, which was kind of annoying because I wanted to shoot with it for this wedding, but it's still fine. It looks great. Whenever I shoot weddings, I tend to keep my gear minimal. I don't like to carry around lights or anything else like that. I like to just keep it very simple: monopod, camera, and one or two lenses. I feel like with minimal gear, it increases my productivity as a filmmaker. Like I can get more shots if I'm not faffing around with loads of different rigs and stuff. I feel like if it's just me and the camera, I can focus solely on the composition. And I think for me that's important because it's all about content and getting good quality content throughout the day. I've got to make up like a 20-minute film. If I don't have enough footage, then I can't do that and I can't deliver what I've promised my clients. So it's important for me to just get as much coverage of just people, headshots, wide shots, mid shots, just people interacting, smiling, laughing, you know, all that kind of thing. So I try to, when I'm doing particularly interviews or getting like kind of close-ups of people, I try to find people that are closer to like windows, things where like beams of light are coming through. Just adds to like the kind of contrast of that image, makes it look more kind of three-dimensional, gives it more like depth, if you will. One thing I really loved about Charlotte and Jacob's was actually, it was kind of like a bit of an improv thing on the day really, but I thought it'd be cool to get like kind of a two-piece interview of them together towards the end of the day, after the ceremony and the canapes, just before like kind of the speeches. I just thought it'd give them like a little time to reflect on what had happened, and it came out really nice. Like I basically put them against the window because that light coming through just looked really nice on their faces, and they just talked and went off on one about like what's happened so far and what they loved the most about the day. So I think going forward, interviews is definitely something I want to focus on. I think it adds a real personal touch to the weddings, and it also gives me a little chance to get to know the couple I'm filming, because I don't always get that luxury of meeting the couple beforehand, because I do weddings all around the country. You know, it's not just one area, so it's not always viable for me to drive all the way down to like say the south of England. You know, I can't just do that for a day. So, and also getting to know them on a personal level means I can cater the edit more to what they are like as a couple. Like I can sort of design the music and the way it's cut together in a style that fits their personality, and that's what's important. So when I started off as a filmmaker, I'm talking like way back when I was a kid, just learning how to use a DSLR to shoot more cinematic looking films. To keep it simple, your shutter speed should be double the amount of frames you're shooting at. So if I'm shooting at 25p, 25 frames per second, I want my shutter speed to be 1/50th of a second. And then if I'm shooting at 50 frames per second, then I want to be shooting at 1/100th of a second. And I used to follow that rule very strictly, but now I kind of just forget about it. I didn't when I had a DSLR, but now I have the Canon C100, don't need to worry about this too much. But when I had a DSLR, I didn't have the luxury of inbuilt ND filters. So, and I'm putting an adjustable ND onto my lens every time I swap lenses. It's not viable for a wedding. Like I haven't got time to do that really. So I just ignored all shutter speed rules. And you know what? Films have never been commented on it looking weird or jittery. It looks really cool. Like I think actually having a higher shutter speed than you're supposed to kind of gives it a certain feel, like kind of a fun, lively feel. I don't think it's just the shutter speed that makes a film cinematic. Not just that. I mean, it's an element, but it's not just that. If I was shooting like a short film, then yeah, sure, I'd follow that rule. But for weddings, it's just nice to mix it up a little bit, because you can drop frames, you can make 50 frames per second look 25 frames per second, but you can't add frames that aren't there. I think overall, Charlotte and Jacob's was a really good wedding. It was great fun. Like, they're such a nice couple, so friendly. When I was doing the speeches for this one, I was really taken back by the fact we all went to the same uni. So Charlotte and Jacob both went to Staffordshire University. I think Jacob was talking about how he first met Charlotte, and he was running around the student union chasing her like for 3 hours or something. And then they mentioned the word gobble, and I was like, gobble? That sounds like the same as my uni's student union. I think it's nice to kind of like get to know your clients on a more personal level, because I feel like I can make a more personal film to them. And also, I don't feel like I'm being as intrusive if I know them a bit more. Because at a wedding, obviously I'm going to stick out a little bit with my camera, but hopefully not too much. So yeah, overall, I think Charlotte and Jacob's wedding film looks great. Like, I'm super happy with it. I was glad to be back at the West Mill. I really love that venue. I'm actually doing another vlog next week on the wedding of Matt and Sarah, and theirs was also shot at the West Mill. Yep, that's 2 weddings I've shot in the last sort of month at the same venue. Don't know why that happened, just did, but it was quite nice. Because the challenge for me then was trying to make 2 very different films at the same venue, because when you're doing a wedding film, structurally it's very similar. Everything that happens on the day of a wedding pretty much is laid out from the beginning, like it's all very similar. The challenge for me as a filmmaker is trying to make each wedding film unique to that couple, because they're individuals. They're not, it's not just like producing the same film again and again and again. It's about trying to make something that's personal to them. And that was the challenge with the West Mill, doing 2 weddings back to back, trying to make them different to one another. So I'll see you next week then. Make sure you tune in for Matt and Sarah's wedding, and I'll see you then.